Okay, real talk. Most roguelikes have the same problem. You die, you go back, you get a little stronger, you die again, and somewhere around hour 8 or 9, you start to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Like, what is the point of any of this beyond just getting better at the game? That question used to have a pretty simple answer. Skill. You're doing it to get better, to eventually win. And that's fine. Binding of Isaac is built on that, Dead Cells is built on that, Slay the Spire, built on that. Great games, all of them. But Hades 2 comes along, and it answers that question completely differently. It says, you're doing this because you actually want to know what happens next. And once a roguelike can make you feel that, everything else in the genre starts to look a little thin. So today, I want to break down what Hades 2 is actually doing differently. Not just it's really good, but specifically why it has set a bar that the rest of the genre is genuinely struggling to clear.
Let's be honest about how most roguelikes handle story. They give you a sentence, maybe a paragraph. You are a warrior. A dungeon exists. Enter it. And then it's just vibes and gameplay loops from there. And for a long time, that was fine, because nobody expected a roguelike to tell you anything meaningful. The genre started as pure systems, random generation, permadeath, brutal difficulty. The point was the chaos, not the narrative. But here's the issue that crept in. Once you get used to the mechanics of any roguelike, the run starts to feel like a commute. You know the rooms, you know the enemy patterns, you know what you're doing. And without something pulling you forward emotionally, people drop off. Even really well-made games in this genre lose players because there's nothing to come back for when you're not in the mood to grind. Rogue Legacy tried to fix this with bloodlines and family history. Enter the Gungeon gave you backstory for each character. Returnal went full psychological horror, trying to give death meaning. All interesting attempts, but they're all doing a version of the same thing, wrapping gameplay in a story that's around the runs, not woven into them. The Hades series figured out something nobody else quite did. It made death the delivery mechanism for the story. You don't just respawn, you come back and something new happens because you came back. Characters remember, relationships shift. The world reacts to the fact that you died again. Hades 2 takes that foundation and pushes it further than anyone had a right to expect.
So the new protagonist is Melinoë, Zagreus' sister, the immortal princess of the Underworld, raised by Hecate in secret after Kronos, the Titan of Time, escaped from Tartarus and took the house of Hades hostage. She's trained her whole life to kill Kronos. That's it. That's the whole mission she's been handed since she was a child. And Hades 2 is actually asking questions about what that does to a person, what it means to be raised as a weapon with no memory of your family, no actual childhood, just purpose. Compared to Zagreus in the first game, who had this charismatic, punchy energy and felt like a classic rebel son trying to escape his father's story, Melinoë is colder, more controlled, genuinely haunted in ways she doesn't fully understand yet. And that complexity means every conversation she has, every relationship she builds between runs, carries more weight. The other thing is, she's a witch, literally. Her whole aesthetic, her spell system, the tarot-style Arcana cards she uses to build power, it all feeds into this image of someone who operates in shadow, who works through ritual and patience rather than brute force. It's a completely different feel from Zagreus' just punch-through-it energy, and that difference makes Hades 2 feel like a genuinely new game rather than just more of the same.
Here's the thing about the original Hades that people forget. The scope was actually pretty contained. One direction. Zagreus escaping up through Tartarus, Asphodel, Elysium, the Temple of Styx. Brilliant execution, but one path. Hades 2 says, what if there were two whole separate games basically layered on top of each other? You've got the Underworld run, the downward path toward Kronos through the familiar Greek Underworld regions, and then, once you unlock it, you've got the surface run, Melinoë heading up to the mortal world and all the way to Mount Olympus to deal with a totally separate threat up there. Different biomes, different enemies, different gods giving you boons, different bosses with totally different patterns, different resources. The Olympus route is brutally harder. Encounters escalate way faster, and it forces you to think completely differently about your build going in.
This is where a lot of roguelikes just don't even try to compete. Most games in the genre give you one loop and vary the content within that loop. Hades 2 gives you two entirely distinct campaigns essentially stacked inside the same game. And the resources, relationships, and story threads between them are connected, so decisions you make in one path actually affect what's available in the other. That's an insane amount of design work, and it mostly works.
The meta progression in the first Hades was the Mirror of Night, basically an upgrade tree where you spent resources to get permanent buffs. Clean, simple, it worked. But it was binary. You either had the upgrade or you didn't. Toggle on, toggle off. Hades 2 replaces that with the Arcana system, 25 tarot-style cards with full illustrated artwork, each one representing a different power or passive ability. But here's the difference. You can't just equip everything. Every card costs a certain amount of brasp, a resource that limits how many cards you can have active at once. As you progress, you expand your grasp, but you still have to make real choices. So now you're not just unlocking upgrades, you're building a deck. You're deciding what combination of cards fits the weapon you're running, the boons you're going after, the specific boss you're planning for. It adds a layer of strategic thinking before you even enter the run, and it makes the pre-run moment feel like part of the gameplay rather than just a menu you click through. And the cards themselves are tied to Melinoë's story. Hecate lends them to her. The dialogue around unlocking them is part of the character relationship. Even the meta progression is storytelling. That's the level of intentionality Supergiant is working at.
I want to talk about Nemesis for a second, because she's a perfect example of what Hades 2 does with its characters. She meets Melinoë basically with contempt, jealous that Melinoë was chosen to fight Kronos instead of her. Aggressive, confrontational, acts like she can barely stand to look at her. But she still shows up during runs. She comes in and obliterates enemies for you, or offers you rare rewards, but in that way where she makes it very clear she's not doing it because she likes you. She's doing it because she hates Kronos more than she hates you right now. And over time, the armor cracks. She doesn't know how to say what she actually feels. The dynamic shifts. It's genuinely well-written character work hidden inside a game about fighting Greek mythology. Then there's Moros, the incarnation of Doom himself, who talks to Melinoë like a nervous kid. Sweet, earnest, always trying to help but limited by what the fates have determined he's allowed to do. And Hecate, who's simultaneously Melinoë's mother figure, her drill sergeant, and someone carrying secrets about her own past that come out slowly, piece by piece. None of this is optional lore you can dig into if you care about it. It's just there. It happens naturally as you play. Every run you come back from, there's a new thread. That's the thing nobody in this genre has replicated properly, making you feel like the world is alive between your runs, not just during them.
I'm gonna be fair here because I think the video would be dishonest if I didn't mention this. Hades 2 is a bigger game than Hades 1. It's more ambitious, but it's less focused. The storytelling in the original was almost surgically tight. Every conversation fed directly into Zagreus' relationship with his family, with his home, with what he was trying to do. The emotional core was always visible. In Hades 2, the wider scope means the narrative threads sometimes feel scattered. Some players finishing it felt the ending didn't quite land the way the first games did. There are also characters who feel like they're designed to fill the same emotional role as characters from the first game. Nemesis maps pretty cleanly onto Megaria. Moros feels built to give you what Thanatos gave you. That's not necessarily a bad thing, the original cast was beloved for a reason, but people who went in hoping for something totally fresh might notice the pattern. And some people genuinely bounce off it because the game is wide. There's so much to track, so many systems, so many resources that the first few hours can feel overwhelming compared to how cleanly the first Hades introduced you to everything. These are real critiques, but, and this matters, even accounting for all of that, it still sold over 2 million copies while it was in early access. It hit a 94 on Metacritic. It's on over 66,000 Steam reviews rated overwhelmingly positive. People are not playing this game because of clever marketing. They're playing it because it delivers.
Here's the thing that keeps coming back to me about Hades 2.
The roguelike genre has been having a moment for years now. Balatro, Dead Cells, Vampire Survivors, Slay the Spire, legitimately excellent games that people love. And the genre gets praised constantly for its replayability, its build variety, the just one more run feeling. But most of those games are built on a pretty honest premise. The run is the point. The gameplay is the reason to be there. Story is either absent or a thin coat of paint. Hades 2 refuses to accept that as the ceiling. It's a game that understood something. People will replay a difficult loot indefinitely if the loop rewards them emotionally, not just mechanically. If every death actually means something is going to happen when you get back. If the characters waiting for you at the crossroads feel like people you actually know and care about. That's hard to build. Most studios don't even try. And the ones that do kind of try usually get the mechanics right, but not the writing, or vice versa. Supergiant did both. And until another studio figures out how to do what they've done here, not just copy the surface level of it, but actually solve the storytelling and a death loop problem, yeah, I think Hades 2 makes a lot of other roguelikes feel like they're still working on the rough draft.